I think it's really important to give some thought to what you want to do. And so these were some of the questions that I kind of asked myself and thought through, and I still do today when I'm thinking about my next step in my career. So what are the things I'm really good at? What are the things that people talk about? When they talk about me, what are the common themes in terms of what I'm good at and what they see as my strengths? What are the things I really enjoy doing? Like I said, I really liked the research part of things. I wasn't so crazy about the teaching part of things. What do I dislike? What do I not have an interest in? And that it doesn't necessarily need to be what you do, but it can also be the people you work with, the type of environment you work with, things like that. There are some people I worked with, and you probably know some as well, who would never work in a place where they had to wear a tie, right? That's just not them. And that's okay, but it's important to think about that and think about what are you comfortable with, what are you not, where do you want to draw some of those lines, because that gives you a way to kind of focus your search. You know, so the bullet after that around where I'm willing to live. So that's another perspective on this. What kinds of things are important in terms of the culture of the company? You know, whether it's the work hours or the environment. Does it matter to you if the office furniture and the conference rooms and stuff are nice, or are you okay with, you know, places where that's not where they spend their money? They spend their money on other things. You know, and then think about what is the job? What would you want to do all day? What would you be interested in? Who are the kinds of people you would want to work with? So for me personally, some of my considerations in terms of how I was thinking about this, I didn't really feel when I was in graduate school like I really fit in with academia. I like the research and exploring things, but there were a lot of people around me who liked going after kind of every last detail and really diving really, really, really deep into something. And that's not really me. I'm sort of a, let's get to the point where I've got an answer that's good enough to move on to the next thing. And then I also wanted to do something that had more of an immediate impact. I was doing basic science research at Fermilab, and it was interesting and cool, but there were only a few hundred people in the world that really cared about it. And I wanted to do something that had more of an impact on society. And then some other things I thought about were I really enjoyed working on teams. I like working with other people. I like spending time with other people, using other people as a soundboard and discussing things. So I wanted to make sure I worked with a team of people that I felt like I fit with. You know, and some of the things I didn't care about. I didn't care about the dress code. It doesn't matter to me if I have to wear a suit every day. It doesn't matter to me if I have to wear jeans every day. I'm good either way. You know, I didn't care if the offices were fancy. You know, that doesn't bother me. So things like that were some of the things that I thought through. And actually, one of the things through the interviews that I did and then thinking about what I was interested in and what I liked actually led me to pursue a museum studies certificate. So the woman I mentioned who I interviewed who had worked at the Science Museum, that sounded like a really cool job to me, designing science exhibits for major science museums in the country. And so I actually pursued and got a museum studies certificate from Northwestern. So I actually was doing kind of other things, and again, that's something that's completely different from what I'm doing today, but it was one of the ways that I was trying to explore things and figure out what to do. All right, and then really trying to narrow that in and say, okay, what do I want to do? I was talking to other people who could help me in some way or another. So I found a mentor, and the service that I used was called MentorNet, and your university may or may not have a relationship with them. But there are lots of other places to go where you could find somebody who might be able to be a mentor to you and answer some questions. So things like I mentioned, you know, talking to people on LinkedIn, the either your own alumni services at your university, the directory on APS, things like that. You know, and there's kind of a difference, I would say, between like the informational interviews where you're really just asking for like a half an hour of somebody's time to say, you know, what was your job, what do you do, you know, what do you like and dislike. And then mentor, the person I worked with at MentorNet was a relationship over about a year period or so. And every few weeks to a month, we would kind of exchange emails, and I would ask questions about either the job search or their career path or things like that. And so that was more of a constant relationship over an extended period of time. Another thing that I did was to work with the career services at my university. And I mainly worked with the career services at Northwestern. And they didn't really know what to do with me at the beginning. They don't have a lot of experience working with physics PhDs. There's not a lot of us to begin with graduating from the university, and there's very, very few. I think I might have been the first person to kind of walk through their doors and say, hey, I need some help. So it took us a little while to get there, but we did end up building a relationship and getting to a point where we understood each other, and they could find ways to be helpful to me, which was great. So they have all sorts of career path information across all different industries and lots and lots and lots of stuff. They have Vault career guides, which if you're not familiar with, you might want to Google your university, and they have a subscription with them. Those are kind of in-depth career guides and have some really nice information in them. And then I talk to them about sort of the nuts and bolts of the job search around resumes and cover letters and how do you apply and, you know, where do things go and how do I tweak and do better next time. And then they also helped me, all right, sorry people, I'm going to have to give me 1 second. So they also helped me to connect to other alumni and with careers where they thought I might fit. So I talked to some people through them. So I actually met with a venture capitalist at one point that was connected to me through who was an alumni of Northwestern. You know, some very different roles that I never really considered and didn't know a lot about. And so they were able to connect me with some people there so I could do some additional informational interviews. And then later, I would say, was where they were most helpful when I was actually going through the job, kind of the job offer process and negotiating an offer and things like that. They actually helped me figure out what were the appropriate salary ranges to provide. You know, when you get asked, okay, what salary do you want? How do you answer that question? And they coached me through the whole job offer process, the negotiation process, things like that. Gave me some tips. So that was extraordinarily helpful. Let's see what else. And I also, I would say, through this whole process, there were some things that I really learned and kind of learned a little bit the hard way. So most people don't really understand what having a physics PhD means. They don't know what skills those are or what it is you might be able to do for them. And so you need to be the one who helps them create that understanding. So it's really on you to figure out how to describe and communicate your skills in a way that will make an employer understand how that might be valuable to them. It's not just enough to have a PhD on a resume. Nobody knows what that means or why that would be helpful to them. And then I also, through this whole process of exploring different careers and looking up information and things like that, I learned a lot of jargon, which was helpful because physicists have a very specific way of speaking about what they do and how they do things. I'll give you a silly example. So, you know, in graduate school, we called you know, a bell curve a Gaussian distribution. In my world, nobody calls it that. Everybody calls it a normal distribution. So it's just something simple, but it took a long time for me to kind of build some of that knowledge of I needed to be using different words. And that the better I got at that, the easier and faster I could get to a point where somebody could understand how I might be a fit for their company. So that's something that I think takes a while to do, and the sooner you can do it, better.